Okay, hello everyone. That's kind of a hard act to follow. It's truly an honor to have Indra with us today. She's a visionary who led PepsiCo through transformative growth driven by her performance with purpose philosophy, focusing on sustainability and innovation. She's one of the world's most influential business leaders, and we are so lucky to have her here today to share her insights. Indra, it's been such a pleasure to meet you. How's your day going so far?
Well, it was a great, easy ride coming from Connecticut to Dallas, although you and I could have done this from Connecticut.
I know.
But leaving that aside, I never thought I'd be squeezed between Texas line dancers and Trevor Noah. That's it.
I know.
I mean, hell, come on. Seriously, I'm just a business person.
I know.
All right? But in my life, I never thought I'd be a warm-up act for him. And he's fantastic. I've had the privilege of knowing him. You're in for a treat. He's just fantastic. Get your popcorn now and sit here. Don't take a break.
That's right. Oh, I love it. Well, so we know part of performance with purpose was a pillar called Cherish, which, as I understand it, was focused on creating workplaces where people could prosper. And you've written about your focus on talent development at PepsiCo, which enabled a lot of leaders at PepsiCo to go on and become CEOs at other organizations. So I think first question I wanted to ask you was, in your experience, what do you think is most important to get right with talent and leadership development, and what do you think most companies miss?
That's a profound question, so let me break it apart and talk about this. When I started Performance with Purpose at PepsiCo in 2006, it was way before anybody was talking about ESG or anything of that sort. So I just looked at the trends in the future and said, we've got to do business a different way. Yes, we've always got to deliver performance. There's no question about it. But we have to deliver performance by doing three other things if we wanted to remain successful well into the future. The first, we needed to change our product portfolio to include more healthy options, so nourish our consumers differently. We needed to think about our environmental footprint in a profound way and replenish the environment wherever we can. Both were easy words, nourish and replenish. And then we got to people and said, look, we cannot use people as tools of the trade. We've got to look at them as real assets. We've got to treat each person as not just an employee at PepsiCo, but a mother, a father, an uncle, an aunt, a citizen of the community, so they can bring themselves to work. Now, people think that's all woke when I say that. I'll come to why it's not woke, all right? So bear with me. So I said, look, let's treat each person as if they were a talent. And I deliberately put in the word, cherish our people. People said, oh my God, that sounds so female. I said, yeah, you're a female CEO, so it sounds female. So duh, what's the big deal? Guess what? We are going to cherish our people. You got a problem with that? Would you like to be cherished? Yeah, I'd like to be cherished, but do we have to call it cherish? Yes, we do. So we had performance while we nourish, replenish, and cherish our product, planet, and people. And we focused on that for all the 12 years that I was CEO. And basically, what was it? PepsiCo was always a talent academy. If I go back in the history of PepsiCo, we hired the best people. We gave them stretch assignments. It was a sink or swim place. And we gave them great feedback and pushed them and pulled them. And people did extraordinary things. So if you look at the industry today, whether it's CFOs, CMOs, CHROs, CEOs, COOs, PepsiCo has supplied a lot of people to industry. So now I have to build on that history of being a talent academy and take it to a whole new place. So I doubled down on how we were going to build the talent base. Not build the talent base for the company of today, but build the talent base and retrain it for the company that we needed to build for the future. Because remember, when you're building a succession pipeline, the people in the lower levels, you're building them for the future of the company, not for today's capabilities. Right. So we had to identify what future capabilities were needed, and then think about what kind of people do we want now that we can drag along. And today, as I look around the US industry, there are 11 CEOs who went through my school. I say my school because they'd say they got beaten up by me, but they love me. All right, so they went through that training and development and mentorship that we provided them, that I provided them personally myself. So it's really thinking of people and people development in a very strategic way to say, this could well be our single biggest asset.
And if you think about what companies are struggling with now as work is changing so much, I think one of the questions we've talked about a lot as part of this event is how companies should be thinking about reskilling, upskilling, and thinking about future skills, future capabilities as the world of work changes, and changes maybe faster and faster. Any perspectives on how you think organizations should think about prioritizing that work?
So, it might surprise you what I'm going to say now. I think in many ways, upskilling and reskilling is up to the individual employee too, because companies can only do so much. All right, what can companies do? They can say, I got to give you courses in AI, ChatGPT, synthetic biology, whatever the new technologies are. But I think today with online courses, most of them free, you can get your TikTok equivalent on small bites of any technology or any course that you want. When you have all of that available to you and it's so democratized, you don't need the company to do organized training programs for you. You can learn anytime you want, picking up any book, any video, any course that you want, and learn it at your pace. So I think what we need to have is, we need to build into our employees a desire to be curious and to want to learn and to explore, as opposed to saying, oh my God, ChatGPT is coming in, is my job going away?
Right.
Yeah, job will go away if you keep wringing your hands. But if you look at ChatGPT and say, isn't this exciting? This could actually augment what I'm doing. It could do better things. It could allow me to do more and be my helper. Remember, ChatGPT is never going to replace you, not the ChatGPT we know today. So go along the journey with ChatGPT. Go along the journey with large language models. Learn it. Learn it at your pace. Ask questions. Become your own training person. Don't expect the company to do it for you, because if the company does it for you, the people who are quick learners will benefit quickly, and you'll be left behind. Everybody cannot learn fast. So get your own courses, learn it quickly. Don't wait till they announce how ChatGPT is going to augment our work and reduce the workforce. Don't wait for that. Get ahead of it. Get ahead of all of this and say, I'm going to become my own teacher, my own trainer. I'm going to take the courses. So I think in an interesting way, in today's world, the onus is on the employee as much as it is on the company.
I think it's really true, and there's more courses available now for free or for $10, $20 than
Absolutely.
ever existed when we were coming out of college, and so the opportunity to learn.
I sit on the board of Amazon, and you think we're board members, right? We just go in and go out. No, we all took online courses on AI and large language models and all of that stuff, because how can you even communicate with Amazon if you don't understand the technologies to a certain extent? You can never be an Amazon technical leader, but you can sort of go halfway so you can really understand what they're saying and then be a good board member. I never thought I'd go back to school at this ripe old age, but I have to tell you, it keeps you younger.
Yeah.
It makes you sharp, and you get a hunger to read more and to learn more just by getting excited by the little stuff that you see in these online courses. So I'd encourage all of you to go and sign up for these courses, because I think you're going to be absolutely invigorated when you see these courses.
I totally agree. Okay, so changing topics a little bit, we know today's workplaces are more diverse than ever across age, gender, cultural backgrounds, and yet we also know we still have a long way to go before our workplaces actually reflect society or our customer base. So from your opinion, I guess, what have you seen work well for companies as they strive to build inclusive workplaces, multi-generational, culturally diverse workplaces? I know you thought about that a lot at PepsiCo.
We have had to think about it a lot. We have 250,000 employees. When I was in PepsiCo, now it's much more. And just in the US, we had over 100,000 people. So we're constantly hiring, developing, churning, bouncing, all of that stuff. We go through this process constantly. And so our principle is very simple. As a consumer products company, our employee base had to reflect the consumer base. Okay, that's the best way to make decisions. And then we map what's the talent base out there. So if there's a gap between the talent base and the consumer base, how can we help universities bridge that gap? How do we put in training programs to bridge that gap? Because certain groups of people are not exposed to certain pedagogy in order to be able to enter the workforce. But I'll give you some statistics, okay? The population of the country may be 50-50, male, female. It's actually 50.1 male and 49.9 female. But let's say it's 50-50. Let's round it up and down. Here are the statistics. 70% of high school valedictorians are women. 60% of college graduates are women. Women get 2/3 of the top grades in colleges. 47% of engineering graduates are women. Women are hungry. Women want to work. Women want economic freedom. Now, you come to the workplace and you say, I am not going to pick from the 60% of the women who are college graduates or who are toppers, who get the best grades. You are sub-optimizing the company. Okay, so if you really are a talent-driven company, you've almost got to put your blinders on and look at a talent, look at a person, not for their color or gender or ethnicity, look for what do they have to offer the company. Now, it's easier said than done, but you have to do that, because if you don't do that, you let your biases and the organization's biases override a pragmatic decision to hire the best talent. But that's only part of the assignment. The second part is, let's say you're a company that hires the best talent, and they come in. Now, when they come in, if you've got all kinds of barriers in the way, all your recruiting efforts just went for waste. So you have to consciously work on removing the unconscious biases. So it's a double-edged problem, and I say it's a problem because we have an intake problem and we have a retention problem, and we have to work on both. And so on the first part, I think HR professionals have a big job to do to make sure that you look at the whole pool and hire the best and brightest from the whole pool. Hire the best and brightest, irregardless of ethnicity or background or gender. But then it's the tone at the top that decides whether this company has unconscious biases or not. So I'll give you an example. When you're in a meeting, I'll pick a woman in this case, presenting. And all of a sudden, people are talking over her. All right? Or I'm looking around the room and I watch a couple of guys rolling their eyes. You go, okay, so I can talk to those people after the meeting, or I can stop the meeting right now and say, will you let her finish? You see, I have the power. Whether I'm president or CFO or CEO, I had the power to stop the meeting and say, let her finish. Or whoever's rolling the eyes say, do you have a problem with your eyes? Okay? So now, don't do it. I am not suggesting you do it in a bad way. I am not suggesting you do it in a bad way. Please don't get me wrong. I'm the last person to offend.
No, yes.
But you say it in a cherishing way. Is there a problem with your eyes? And I say this to you guys because very often, if you don't do it at the point at which it happens, people assume that you've sanctioned that behavior.
Right.
Okay? And they don't know that you've talked to the team behind. But you do it in a sensible, sensitive, situation-appropriate way. People will get the message. And if you model that behavior constantly, it very quickly goes down the organization that this is a company that is not going to tolerate this sort of behavior. I'm not saying PepsiCo was perfect, by no means. But even when we looked at the code of conduct issues, which I would look at every quarter, when I was CFO, president, CEO, I'd look specifically at anything to do with harassment, sexual harassment, bad treatment of people of different kinds, and make sure those issues were resolved very, very quickly. Because if we let those issues linger for a long time, it means the company doesn't care about those issues.
Right.
Right? And so, to me, that was very, very important that the tone at the top was set, and then my predecessors all set the same tone. Okay, so I was standing on the shoulder of giants, and we all, did that in the company, and that's why the company was successful.
Amazing. Well, I know that was an amazing answer, right? So in your book, which I read and so enjoyed, and in your masterclass, which I watched, you talk about the importance of companies studying long-term trends, the mega trends that influence consumers, labor market, businesses, 10, 15, 20 years out, and then taking that vision and working backwards to future-proof your business. So I wanted to ask, what long-term trends do you think HR leaders should be paying particular attention to right now?
So HR is just, sort of you plug and play, or you are a subset of the big trends that are going to impact the business, all right? And I've never seen a time where you've got technology, you've got demographics, you've got globalization, you've got environmental issues that are going to impact everything from the globe as a whole to societies, to companies, to individuals, okay? This is a profound time of change. Yes. And I want to be honest with you, 18 months ago, nobody talked about ChatGPT.
No.
Right now, that's all we talk about. Think about the disruption. We never talked about quantum computing 6 months ago. Today, at least in certain circles, everybody's talking quantum computing. So I think there's a pace of technology change that's happening right now, which is either exciting, exasperating, or worrisome. It's going to help humanity, destroy humanity, or help humanity. I don't know what the answer is, but it is unsettling because it's going to impact so many aspects of society. So I think it's very, very important that all of you, if you go Google megatrends, you'll see so many companies putting out megatrends. Just read them. I think you'll find it very interesting to just read because 60% of the megatrends are common across everybody's megatrend articulation. The other 40, if you really go down to nuts and bolts, it's also the same language, except they use funny words or profound words. So there's really 10 or 15 megatrends that are going to reshape our world going forward. But for each of these megatrends, one thing is common. The kind of people you hire, train, develop, retain, and then retire is going to change over this life cycle. So you're going to have to pick the right talent that the company needs as the world around you is changing. But it's again going back to what I said first. It's not the talent that you need today. It's the talent you need to hire and develop today for tomorrow, and how you retool the talent you have today for those who are willing to change for the future. So you've got a dual problem. Now, that means you HR people have to be a hell of a lot more on your toes than maybe you were, okay? And I'm going to now say something which I believe in, but don't think is an industry norm, so don't get worried. I actually believe there are two roles in HR. There's a talent management role, and there's an HR role. I almost think of talent management as literally going around assessing talent, figuring out which talent can be reskilled and upskilled and rebooted, whatever it is. And then you've got the HR job, which is labor, comp and benefits, making sure that people are paid right. Think of it as the engine room work. There's a lot to be done. Because if that's not done, it doesn't matter what you do with this other part, which is the talent development. Because everything about talent depends on how they're compensated, paid, and retained. So what I did was I hired somebody to do talent. And I had my head of HR. The talent person worked with the HR person and with me directly, and came with me to as many meetings as she could. And at the end of every meeting, any major meeting, especially globally, we'd make notes on people and say, who among them can we push? Who showed innate curiosity? Who's really thought in a different way? Who told truth to power without power realizing the truth was being told to them? It's a challenge, okay? Yeah. Who are the people who sort of intrigued us in this meeting? And then we would put them into a funnel and say, let's track them, let's follow them. Let's give them some assignments that test their mettle a bit more. So talent management has to be done in a very deliberate, organized, systematic way, as much as we did HR in a very systematic way. So again, if you're a small or medium-sized company that's more in one geography, this may not be that important. But if you're a big global company, oh my God, you have to do this. Because if you don't, in today's mixed up world where nobody knows what a global company is anymore and how you deal with all of these issues, you better think about talent development in a very systematic way. And remember one thing, talent development and succession management doesn't happen in 3 or 5 years. Our funnel went, in 25 years, this person could be a C-suite. In 15 years, these people could be in the C-suite. So we were looking at slices going way back and developing these people over time. And these people who showed up in the funnel were called corporate assets. And the CEO owned them. I owned them. So I would make sure they never left the company. I made sure they got brutal feedback, good and bad. And so it was a deliberate, systematic strategy of developing people. And if you don't do that, I'd say that leader is selfish, because talent development is a very unselfish job. Because if you really develop talent, they could take your job, right? So you have to commit to talent development. That's the most unselfish thing you can do. And if you don't do that, then you're really not a leader. You're just a person who's very self-important. That's about it.
Amazing. That's amazing advice. So I think, related to developing and retaining talent is also a lot of the things that you've written about how to make workplaces more friendly for working families. Will you say a little bit about, what you would recommend or what you might advocate at this point for companies to think about as they think about the dynamic of working families?
So I'm going to start with the makeup of the workforce, right? We've talked so much about work from home, hybrid work, flexible work, come to work all the time. All of this is being talked about. But I have to tell you, if I look at the pyramid of workers in the country, a lot of what we're talking about applies to about 10 or 15% of the workforce. Right. 85% of the workforce still gets up in the morning and goes to work and has no choice. As I think about PepsiCo, when I was there, you think we could manufacture Frito-Lay snacks sitting at home on a hybrid basis? Could we innovate that way? Could we procure that way? Could we drive trucks and put it on the shelf that way? Could Amazon have delivered it to you at your home, sitting at home? I don't think so. 85% of our country's workforce didn't have a choice but to get up in the morning, rain, snow, shine, and show up in a workplace for the service of that 15% that's having the discussion, not even 15, I think it's 13, that's having a discussion about, should I do a hybrid, work from home, stay, whatever it is. Hello, let's be realistic. If you want to be a servant leader, which is what all of us should be, okay? I think that it's okay to have these conversations, but have these conversations as the exception, not the rule. Let me give you an example. You have this continuum. Come to work all days of the week. 5 days, in my case, it was 7.5 days. Okay, come to work. On the other hand is working from home. Whatever hours you work, it's working from home. And then in between is this hybrid and flexible. Hybrid being you're on 3 days, you go home 2 days, whatever it is. Flexible is, hey, I come to work, but if I have a problem at home, I have to go home, or I have to take my kids to doctor's appointments or whatever I go. So let's not confuse all of them. I'm all for flexible working, okay? Come to work because we need to see you in action. We need to see you interact with others. We need to show our front line that we support them. But we'll give you all the flexibility you want. You need to be back home by 3 p.m. to pick up your kids in the school bus? Go for it. All for families, okay? I'm all for kids, all for families to stay together, I'm for everything. And I sympathize with single mothers who have to pick up their kids and have a second job at home. I mean, it's really tough. But all that I'm saying is, let's not make this discussion about hybrid, flexible, work from home, all that stuff, and make it sound as if it's for the entire workforce. It's not.
Right.
Teachers, how would you like teachers to work from home and teach your students? How would you like nurses to tend for you? Do you know 87% of nurses are women? Would you like them to work from home and take care of you through a robot? I don't think so.
Right.
So I'm just going to tell you, the top, focus a bit more on flexible working. Flexible might lead to some hybrid working. And if you really want to work from home because you're in the knowledge economy and you can work from home, do that. But if you work for a company that would rather have you come in because they'd like to see you in groups, they'd like to see you develop people, et cetera, don't insist on working from home and then say, why am I not advancing in my career? So you've got to balance your career aspirations with your work style. And that's just a practical perspective that I'm giving you. Now that I'm not a CEO, I can dole out this advice.
That's right.
This is the practical perspective, guys.
I want to ask just one more question before we run out of time. You described yourself as a dreamer and a doer. And I think many of us strive to have bold visions, but also execute them with our teams. And so in our half a minute that remains, what lessons from your amazing career would you want to share with our audience for leaders who want to make meaningful changes in our organizations? You drove so much transformation in your time at PepsiCo. What lessons would you share with all of us, I think, who are trying to also drive transformation?
You know, this whole issue of dreaming and doing is what I call sort of zooming out and zooming in, all right? Any strategy developed at 10,000 feet is worthless unless it can be implemented. And any implementation is worthless unless it's part of a bigger strategy. So you can't say, you know, you zoom out and you dream and you go do, because the two have to come together.
Right.
And so I decided a long time ago that strategy without implementation doesn't make sense, and implementation without a clear idea of how you fit into the strategy didn't make sense. So maybe it's just through my consulting training, et cetera, this capacity to zoom out and zoom in. It's like a telephoto lens. I do it all the time. So any book I read, if I read 4 books, a shape will start to appear. Don't even ask me how and where it came. It's not from, you know, it just didn't appear, but somehow in my brain I can connect dots and a shape appears. And then I start thinking about how are we going to implement it. So I'll give you an example. You know, when I read the book, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. Upset me, disturbed me deeply. It's about the use of cell phones in schools and how society is changing because you're so wedded to that smartphone device. People don't give eye contact. We're redefining what is humanity. So when Jonathan Haidt, the book I read, I just didn't read the book and sort of worry in silence. I okay, got to do something about it. Call Jonathan Haidt. Hey, Jonathan, what can we do about this? Call Connecticut government. What can we do about this? All of a sudden, we're now connecting all the dots to say, you can't just read a book and get disturbed and say, hey, who cares that my kids are grown up? You got to care about these things. So I zoomed out. I read more books on this topic, worried about causality, correlation, all of these issues. I said, okay, let's park that on the side. Let's start talking about how we can fix it now. Meanwhile, Connecticut was already ahead in the thinking. So it was great to connect the two. Amazing. So at every point in time, if you don't elevate and then come back to the ground level, people won't respect you. People say, yeah, you know, big talker. But if you can land it, if you can land the planes, people start to respect you.
Amazing. Let's have a round of applause for Indra. Thank you so much.